in Long Beach. He's going to give us all this great information about patents, what you should do, what you shouldn't do, how do you start it, and you better make sure you finish because you're on a time clock once you start. So I would like to welcome Mr. Curtis Harrington into the community, and he's going to do a takeover. It's going to be his show today. He's going to let us know everything we need to know about patents. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Give us a little bit of background about yourself, and then you can go at it.
Okay. I am a patent attorney and tax attorney. I'm currently, the only thing I do that for real fun, I guess, is to chair the California Board of Legal Specialization as a tax specialist, and we're a small group that oversees all the tax and other specialties in the state, including family law and admiralty and criminal law and everything, and so that's kind of fun. For myself, I have a technical background, master's in chemical engineering, electrical engineering, MBA, Law 1 and Law 2 in tax, and so I am the inventor's patent attorney and tax attorney. So for inventors that hire me to do their patents, they end up with a tax attorney along on the ride. I want to empower everybody as much as I can with this talk, and again, not all patent attorneys know this stuff as much because a lot of them work for corporations, and there are some really good benefits that individuals have for their inventions and their starting into business. And I'm going to really blitz through this thing and try to give you as much information as I possibly can. All right, what is a patent? Patents, trademarks, copyrights. Of those three, they're all called intellectual property. They're all different, and they're negative. This is the one thing they have in common, meaning that when you have one, it entitles you to stop other people from doing something. It doesn't necessarily mean that you can do it yourself. It's a grant of monopoly by the United States government through the United States Patent and Trademark Office for a short period of time. It is a capital asset. It qualifies under Section 1231 of the Internal Revenue Code, and inventors who are also holders have instant capital gain rights. It's an instant capital gain in the hands of a creator under 1235. It works for people, warm-blooded people, not for corporations, and it doesn't also work for employees, meaning that you don't get to have a nice stream of capital gain income. Again, negative only. Some of the categories are machines, compositions of matter like an engine or robotic arm, a new and useful drug, articles of manufacture like a jacket or a coat or some special clothing, a process like making epoxy, a new way to do it. Plants are even in there. But the main two areas are design patents, which are trademark-like in that it's the fanciful part of something that has utilitarian value. So for example, you see this like headphones. They could have made these headphones like a million different ways. You could have, it could look totally different even though they have the same electronic components. Design patents are very important for things, let's say, like wallets and handbags, because they're utilitarian items, and you can do that, come up with a new design for those. And in doing that, you get credit for all the great tax advantages that patents have, in addition to things like engineering, like a new piston, a new engine, a new jacket, a new type of cloth, and that sort of thing. So it's very important to do that, and one of the reasons it is so important is that the patents can form a document of title that enables you to show that you're selling something to someone else, and if you're able to do that, it gets you these capital gains. Well, right now, capital gains are either based upon your income level, and they start at 0, 15, 20, and 23.8, which is the 3.8% add-on, which means if you lived in, let's say, a non-income tax state and you made about less than, say, $70,000 in licensing royalties on patents, it's tax-free. On the other hand, if you earn over $450,000, let's say, the federal rate is going to be 23.8. All of the states charge their own taxes, and none of them really give you much of a break. Only one state that ratios itself off of the federal return will give you a proportional reduction of your tax rates there. But say, for example, in California, if our top rate in California is 13.3%, then as an inventor, if you sell it while you're living in California, it's going to be 13.3%. So utility patents are a little bit more complicated. Let's talk about how these things work. A utility patent is like a thesis. And so what you do is you start with a blank piece of paper and you write about the background, and you write about a description of the drawings and what it is you're trying to do, and then a technical description. And in the end, you want to have claims that set forth what the invention is, and those claims could be used in court to go after people and to be able to tell if people are infringing. A design patent, though, is very spatial. It's very semi-photographic in that you don't use photographs, you use drawings. But for example, on an item, you do the front, the back, the top, the bottom, and usually a perspective, which is somewhere in between, and that will characterize what you think your invention is. For example, on this, if someone determined that the really cool part of this was the headband, they would simply put the headband in the picture. The claim is pretty standard, but it's what you show and how you show it as to whether you want to claim it. If someone did this portion, if you look at the top, it has a pad in the top. If that's part of your invention, if you put it in the drawing, and if you leave it out, then it's not. The nice thing about design patents, they get all these great tax benefits, and they have the ability to turn into a three-dimensional trademark that can last forever. There are some ramifications about what happens when a thing can last forever and when it doesn't. So you do these things oftentimes in conjunction with a desire, and it's just like dating. You don't know who you're going to end up with on date night. To either A, you want to manufacture it yourself, or B, you'd love to sell it to Danny Warbucks. But you may not have a choice on that, meaning you don't necessarily get to dictate who you want to date when you're going on a blind date. And when you're trying to sell your idea and sell your product, you need to know as much about it as possible, but you may not know where it ends up. Remember, you could make your own product and your own income on this that's going to be taxed at ordinary rates, and in year 3, someone could buy it from you, in which case you get capital gains thereafter. So the main thing is to set the topic and the item up correctly when you go in. You got to finish your invention. That's the first step in all this. And in finishing your invention, you must not talk to other people, because you can get infected by them and vice versa. Once they know what your invention is, if they come up with a really good alternative for you, that alternative might become part of the invention. And if it does, then guess what? The person that you talk to is your co-inventor. One of the things you'd like to do is to file your case as soon as you can, but at the same time, you need to finish it. It may turn out that 70 to 80% of the value in a patent might be in the final 5 steps that you took in order to manufacture it. Tiny little aspects of the invention that would seem almost inconsequential, but might be where the real value is. So let's look at some other things here. One of the ways that you can protect it, so let's go, is you can use insurance and a number of other things. So let's talk about how you go through this step by step. First thing you need to do is finish the invention. That means you need to know exactly what it costs to make it, because remember that it's going to, if you make it for $1 and it's going to sell for 20, and that is not far-fetched, because many things that you find in the store for $19.95 were made just for $1. You've got to pay yourself some money. So that means that you've got to make it for $1. You sell it maybe for $1.50, and the wholesaler, if that's the industry that you're in, sells it to the next person, and perhaps they're going to make a couple of times their money, and then it gets sold to the retail, and then they will make whatever they're going to make, usually by selling it for $19.95. So as a result of this, every penny that you shave out of an item is going to save 20 cents at the end, assuming, again, every product is different, but most retail products that are sort of normal, where you're dependent upon a company, a store to get it onto the shelves, they're going to make a lot of money. And I know I'm talking $1 and maybe you make 50 cents. If you license it to Daddy Warbucks, remember that part of your money has got to come out of 50 cents. And so it may be a nickel. It might be a dime. But you've got to know all that, because remember, when you have your invention finished and you want to go to Daddy Warbucks and say, I'm ready to sell you my invention, you need to know exactly what it's worth. You don't want him to take advantage of you for certain, and of course, chances of your being able to take advantage of him are very slight. And so by knowing all of that, you need to know the difference between ordinary income. So for example, in California, we're 39.8 federal, we're 13.3 the state, so that means you're going to have a combined tax rate of around 50%. On the other hand, if you're going to sell your invention, you get instant cap gains. You might be as low as, say, 15% if you're under a couple $100,000. And so maybe you want to go to Las Vegas before you sell it. One of the ways that you can sell an invention is that you can license it to meet the IRS standards on what a sale is. And the reason you do that for inventors is by not giving up title, that means you don't have to sue to get title back. If I or you license someone for the full term of the patent, for the full term of the country involved, and you don't maintain or keep any rights in it other than the right to get money, the IRS treats it as a sale. And when you do that, that means you have an income stream that is based upon sale and therefore is going to be taxed at cap gains rates. One of the things you might want to do is to reside in a zero tax rate state tax-wise, so that you at least eliminate what is for us in California 13.3%. Now, one of the things you can do as a technique while you're planning all this, you can attack this thing on different levels. You can make it yourself out of your garage for a while, and you could end up going national with it. And if you decided to do that, there are other considerations that you need to make tax-wise, as well as your own domicile where you live, so that you can try to minimize your tax liability. And minimizing your tax liability also includes minimizing your sales tax liability. Where the item is sold from can make a difference, as well as your involvement with it. So what do you do? Finish the invention, apply for the patent. And so remember that most of the world is such that you have to apply for the patent, let's say on a Monday, before you go to a trade show on Tuesday. We have a rule in the United States that allows you to have a year to sell it before you can apply for patent, but you don't want to do that because it would mess up your sales and your ability to get patents in places like Japan and Germany. Now, remember what I said, though, that you get the whole country for the whole term. That also means that while you have a right, let's say that you file in the United States on a Monday, you have the right to file in Japan on Tuesday, claiming the priority date that you filed in the United States on Monday. What that means is you want to file your application before you ever offer anything for sale, before you ever publish the invention. What happens if you offer this, and let's say that it's Wednesday, and someone from Japan comes to you and says, I want to buy your whole patent for my whole country of Japan for the full 20 years potential period, then you get to sell it to them. And now you've created a stream of capital gain income to yourself. The timing of when you do that can determine what taxes you're going to pay. So if you're a California resident at the time that you trigger this license for Japan, it may be that you are going to end up paying 10% to the state. So one of the things you might want to do is maybe live in another state like Nevada or Texas or Florida or Alaska, which has a zero income tax rate. Some of the other things that you might want to do is, if you're trying to get someone encouraged to buy your invention and you want them to get off the dime, let's say, and do some advertising, or you want to license it and you want them to put some money into publicizing it, you might give them an option. Let's say that you gave them $1 a year for royalty for the first year or two in order to make them get off the dime and spend some money to exploit it. On the other hand, you can give them a license rate that looks like a ski jump. In other words, it goes up every year. What this means is that you can sell it, and let's say it's $1 for the first year, $2 for the next, and $5 for the next, and $30 for the next. It goes up almost like a ski slope. If the person doesn't pay you, and if you do your license correctly, the patent just basically, the equitable patent rights jump back in your pocket. That eliminates your ability or need to sue the person who is not performing under the license. There are some other aspects of the license in terms of you're trying to control it. But remember, when you sell it, how do you sell something? You give up all your rights in it. If you don't give up all your rights and you're not selling it, you're sharing it. And that's the big difference between trade secret and patent. All patents really start out as a trade secret. And you can license a trade secret. But remember, when the product hits the market, if it's reverse engineerable, then that means the value of it is pretty much gone. But with a trade secret, you have to promise to never practice the invention again, or else the government will say you didn't really sell it, you just licensed it, you just shared it and used it. Anything you share or use is going to be taxed at ordinary rates.
Okay, can we take a break right now?
Sure.
Okay, well, we're enjoying the talk that we're getting. We're getting a lot of great information. We're going to take a quick pit bull break, and we're going to come back with more information. You can always take your notes. This is going to be on YouTube, so you're always able to make use of this great information. It's very valuable information that Kurt is giving you, and he's here, and we're grateful that he's here. We'll be right back.
Are you a diabetic? Need some energy? Need to quench your thirst? Try Pitbull Sugar-Free Energy Drink, the only energy drink named suitable for diabetics by the American Diabetic Association. And it's now available with no calories, no carbs, no sugar, and no fat, and a smooth, natural blend of energy, vitamins, and minerals. Need to quench your thirst? Try Pitbull Sugar-Free Energy Drink, the only energy drink named suitable for diabetics by the American Diabetic Association. And it's now available with no calories, no carbs, no sugar, and no fat, and a smooth, natural blend of energy, vitamins, and minerals. Pitbull Sugar-Free Energy Drink is the healthiest, best-tasting energy drink around. For more information and online ordering with free shipping, please visit hiphopbev.com. Remember, Pitbull Sugar-Free Energy Drink, suitable for diabetics, great for everyone.
And we are back. We have Curtis L. Harrington here. He's from Harrington and that great city of Long Beach. He's giving us an A to Z on patents. He is a patent attorney, and he has a long, long list of things that he's done. My God, he does all of these things here that I can't even name. We don't have that much time. And he also speaks publicly as well. So we're going to give out his great information later on, but we're going to go right back into his talk on patents. Here we go.
Right. If we could start with the slides, we'll try to go through this as quickly as we can. Face page, maybe go to slide 3, if we could, maybe. Okay. Disclaimer, educational on slide 2. These are on my website, by the way, and you'll be able to look these things up, and especially you'll have one just for the show a little bit later on. Okay, slide 3. Okay, so let's go over some objectives. So we got something in front of ourselves, and we can talk about this. The patent sale, again, is a tax shelter and uses section 1235 and 174. And the way it uses that, there's language in 174 that decouples it from recapture of an item. So most of us, for example, if you buy an item and you depreciate it and then you sell it, the government sometimes makes you choke down the depreciation as ordinary income because they figure that you took it as ordinary and that we're going to make you take it back as ordinary until you reach a point which was higher than the basis you'd paid for it. So 174 and 1235 work to give you that arbitrage and, in essence, kind of a tax shelter for patents, and it's really good, and it's legitimate. It's not, it's something that Congress intended. Again, you can use options to incentivize others, balance the tax considerations with bankruptcy. For example, one of the big things about patents is that you can hold on to your patent as a licensee, and when the licensor goes into bankruptcy, and sometimes the other way around. And so if you're going to do a sale, you're going to kind of be stuck with the bankruptcy options. And if you're not going to do a sale, especially in those early years where you're trying to incentivize someone and you're willing to take ordinary income, you can set up a license on a very loose basis, like a monthly letter, and it will help avoid a patent being hung up in bankruptcy. You eliminate liability in selection and adoption of trademark sales functions apart from asset ownership. This is another technique where if you're going to do a business, and let's say your business isn't 100% like you want it to be, you can do a series of LLCs or a series of business entities to try to isolate maybe some of the liability of your asset from some of the other. Okay, next slide. Some other objectives, you're looking for criticality and non-obvious computer methods. So if you're a business owner and you're looking for ways to make money on this, you're looking maybe for some computer applications. You want to use insurance to promote deductibility, and a good example is like trademark insurance. For example, trademark is not something that you're supposed to be able to deduct. Yet, if you get insurance for it, you can. And there are a few other things like that as well you might want to use. You have tax-based selection of both your domicile and business operating and sales locations. You want your sales locations to preferably be in places where you don't have to have as much of a tax impact. A good example would be Oregon, where they don't have sales tax. You want to have personal liability for tax should be eliminated to the extent possible. And you want to always segregate your cap gains money and your stream from your ordinary income stream. Next. Okay, in overview intellectual property, again, it's all negative. There's no positive right to manufacture or sell, and some IP can qualify as assets that attract capital gains. Next. Okay. There are common misconceptions. A patent gives you the right to manufacture. No, it doesn't. You have to do a search. No, you don't. But if you want to spend $10 million on one, you can. The prior art that is used to be cited against patents is everything on planet Earth between now and 1 billion years ago. So if you want to spend a couple of million for a search, that's cool. You don't necessarily have to do that. Again, another one, let's send them a really nasty letter and we'll see if they like it. If they don't like it, they can lump it. If you send someone a letter for infringement, they can drag you into court in their local city, wherever they are. And if they're in Cincinnati, maybe you don't want to go there. Next. Okay, so a patent, we got the types, utility, and design. Next. Okay. We've talked about why do you file it. Again, you get up to a 39% U.S. government subsidy. You get to deduct the money you're paying your patent attorney. And so in California, for example, because of the fact that your combined tax rate of 39 and 13.3 is over 50, you get a 50 cents on the dollar break contribution from government whenever you file from California. And of course, after that, you want to get to Nevada if you can. It makes competition think twice. It is a sales document. You can buy patent insurance to stop infringers, which is now available. It's great for advertising and marketing. People think you're cool if you have a patent. You have a 1-year right to file foreign for patent. So that means you file a patent on the U.S., you have the right to file just about worldwide during that whole year. And during that year, you want to attract those people from overseas because you can, for every one that you do a sale on, you can generate a income stream that comes from the foreign country into your bank account. And again, you have the right on design to do that at 6 months. If you have an invention that is both utility and design, you want to try to time your trade show so that you can figure out if your invention is going to be any good or not as within 6 months. Next, let me share one war story. I did a car tag lock that I finished it, had 3 different design approaches filed the utility patent, went to the trade show, bought the patent insurance, which the patent insurance is very weird because of the fact that it is triggered by the fact that some other item comes onto the road, comes onto the market, and I took it to the show and nobody liked it very much, and so I was about done at that point. I mean, I went ahead and had the patent issue and did some other things, but it just goes to show you that you need to line up your trade show and see how it's going to do. Sometimes you won't know how it's going to do until you get to the trade show, and that's someplace where you go after you've patented it. Now, or at least applied for a patent, because the patent's not going to come back for about 2 years, or maybe even 3. 174 tells you what you can do for deductions and why it works as such a good arbitrage. And one of the things on 174 as well, you can capitalize. Only people with huge net operating losses would ever want to do that. Next. All right, so you can deduct your patent attorney fees, your non-marketing type research, equipment, testing, experiments, technical performance statistics. Next. Cases of interest. Now, there's just some cases that allow you to operate a little bit better. If you have an investment partnership, Green v. Commissioner stands for the fact that as long as the patent is not completely locked up yet, you can put money further into the partnership and deduct it when it's used for deductible items. Whereas most dead-ended partnerships where you can't really expand it, we would have to capitalize those. So Green is a very important case. Next. Okay, the next one is Scoggins v. Commissioner. Again, the partnership has to still have the ability to enter business, and not just the IP, but also the partnership itself. Next. Okay, the next one is very important. Associated patentees from 1945. Normally, when someone buys a patent, they have to capitalize it, and capitalization is really just an interest-free loan to the government. And when you do that, in essence, if you have $1 million in your pocket and you can have a building put up overnight, and you collect $1 million in rents at the end of the year, the government just doesn't say, well, you're broken even, so you're good to go. They make you pay the tax on that $1 million of rents, and they allow you to depreciate it over a 27 or 30-year life of the building. And so in essence, it's an interest-free loan to the government. What Associated Patentees says is that if you charge on a dollar per unit item basis, let's say for your license, then the person paying that can deduct it at the time that it's made, and he doesn't have to capitalize it, which, depending on the cost of capital, can save you around 8%. Next. Okay, tax credits, they're very complicated. They have 3 or 4 different approaches, usually used by, that's the only real tax advantage that large corporations have. Small inventors can take this credit, although sometimes you have to calculate it. There are a couple of shortcuts to it, but it gives you something. It's not like Toronto or Canada where you get a refundable credit from the beginning. They're very sparse. It's a very sparse credit. Next. Okay. You get, for some things, if you're actually making an item in the United States, you get a production deduction under Section 199 as a credit. It's a production deduction and credit. And again, you have to be actually making something, and that's in the code, and you can worry about that if you're ever going to production. Next. Okay, the bankruptcy risk we've talked about, and again, the licensee, if someone, either the licensor or the licensee, one of them does bankruptcy, the trustee has the ability to come in and take over the rights of the other person. And so if you're not in a capital gain situation where you've done an actual sale, you may want to do a month-by-month license so that it can run out on its own, especially if you think that the other person might be about to do bankruptcy. There's a licensor bankruptcy. That means when the licensor does it, bankruptcy, then is treated as terminated, and you can file a claim. I mean, if you're a licensee, you can file a claim with the bankrupt estate. And the licensee can also continue under his contract. Again, the bankruptcy trustee may want to sell it, and it may disrupt that relationship. Next. Okay, so we know general law principles. Here's the general law principles, okay? Asset purchase, you normally capitalize and write it off. If you have an asset sale, you give up 100% of the ownership rights. If you have a related entity sale, you may be limited in your deductions and also in terms of the gains. One of the nice things about 1235, it treats brothers and sisters and siblings as if they are not related taxpayers. So that means if you're an inventor and you want to set up your sibling to run the company and to pay you money which get filtered to you as cap gains, you might want to do it. Okay? And a license, remember that a license can have a lot of stuff with it. And the biggest problem that my inventors have, if you have a really good inventor, the licensee is going to try to tie them up and make it such that they can't move and they can't invent other stuff without them having rights in it. And so you got to remember, a license is a promise not to sue. So for example, if I don't have a dog, but I could sell you for $100 the right that if you ever ran over my dog, I couldn't sue you. That's a license. It's not,
Really?
yes. And so it's just a promise
know
not to
that.
sue. Okay. Next slide. Again, general tax rates, when you're in business for yourself, you got self-employment at 15, in addition to the 50% that you're going to get combined federal and the state from California.
Wow.
So that means you're looking at 65% if you're doing this stuff yourself. Social Security has a 3% forever aspect of that self-employment. The state tax, of course, and most states, again, tax at their own rates. Next. Okay, general tax rates. Top ordinary 39.6, state, again, California 13.3, Texas 0. Again, you're going to get average. This is a news item where a baseball player was offered $168 million to come to California. And
I heard about that.
And he said, no thanks. Next. Okay, cost of capitalization, I'm going to leave that to you if you could skip a couple of slides ahead. That's only gets you like 8%. The real cost of risk, though, as we can see here from this slide, is what happens if a person, let's say, buys your patent for $1 million, and it turns out that something's invented tomorrow that causes that patent to be worthless, and no one would ever deal with that patent. That's the cost of risk. And when you have someone that you're trying to license to, and you're asking them for $1 million, that's $1 million of risk. You're going to get far much more money per unit item if you do it per unit item, because there's no risk. If it becomes uneconomic, then the guy just simply quits paying you, and hopefully if you've got a good license, the patent will jump back in your pocket. Next. Okay, sale is substantially all the rights. Don't make the mistake, if you're an inventor, of trying to put your fingers into the pie and controlling everything. You've got to be willing to really and truly give it up. And so subject to payment, no problem. Subject to other things, could end up not being a license. Next. Again, 1235 is kind of nice. You can go inside of 1235 with its few really nice aspects, one of which I mentioned was siblings. It has a relaxation for siblings. Another one that's not good is it takes the normal 50% that you've got to have with someone else in order to be a partner with them, and it reduces it for the inventive entities of the holders to 25%. So it has and it takes away. It's not all great. Next. And you can go outside of 1235 by holding the patent for more than a year. So for example, if you sell the patent to someone and they hold it for a year and then resell it, they get cap gains. Next. Now, you can do options, as I've mentioned before. If you want someone to do something, you can give them an option. Some people, like, you give someone an option to buy the patent for $1 million, and maybe you give them 3 years to exercise it, and in that time you've moved to Texas, for example. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Next. Okay. Seller objectives. Now, the seller obviously wants to maintain his holder status. And holders can be inventors and can also be people who reduced it to practice before, or rather invested before it was reduced to practice. Reduced to practice under IRS sense has a different meaning than reduced to practice under the patent law, and the standard for IRS is much looser. That means if it would work at all, even if very clunky, it's considered to be reduced to practice. So the IRS standards on who is an investor before reduction to practice is very much harder to prove. You get limited liability for holding a patent. That means if you sit around and watch TV all day, there's no real liability for having that patent, and it's only used when you want to stop someone from doing something. Unlike a trademark, which is can have liability, okay? And again, because of the fact that it's already been proven that you can have a partnership that will hold on to these holder status, why experiment with an LLC and, you know, put millions of bucks in to be the only person that makes it to the Supreme Court to prove your point? Okay, next. Seller objectives. The seller wants to keep the patent in position to enter business. He wants all substantial rights, and he wants the green case. He wants to be able to use it if he's got a partnership. He wants to hold back some jurisdictions for potential patent filings. That means if you're an inventor, what if you decide that, hey, I want to sell it out of my garage, but I happen to have a guy come over from Japan, and he wanted to buy the patent for all of Japan. So that man has, or woman, inventor, even a child, now has a stream of money coming from Japan, this instant capital gain, and they make the product in their garage and sell it, and they get ordinary taxation rates. So that means you can sell certain countries and not sell certain others. That also means if you meet Daddy Warbucks and he's active in, say, 10 countries, and you know 5 countries that would be interested that are not on his list, you could go and license him in those countries. And, you know, because of Daddy Warbucks, the guy you're selling it to doesn't have a product in those countries. So you have a lot of stuff to do. And what this all means, if you go to my website, there's a thing called critical patent timing. And from the day that you file the patent, your 1 year starts running, and you want to do the maximum that you can to attract as much overseas activity, because after a year you have to start paying for it. You have to either pay for it in terms of getting a PCT extension on your ability to file overseas, or you have to file overseas, and you could spend $200,000-300,000 on this. Next. Okay, cap gains treatment, we talk about those are the 3 rates, the 0, 15, 20, 23.8. Cap gains pivots off of their associated non-capital gain tax rates and income levels. You want to, if you're the seller as a patent, you want to avoid any other taxes by residing in a good state without state income tax. You want to avoid trying to touch product because you don't want product liability. And you also want to live in a state or where you can, if you're going to sell it yourself and not get capital gains, where the sales tax is going to make the least liability for you. For example, like right now, under the law as it currently is, you want to live in Oregon, let's say, so that you can sell it all day long inside of Oregon and out and get 0 sales tax rate. Go ahead. You want to control risk sharing. You want to require a large initial payment. Obviously, if you're the seller, you'd love to have 5 or 6 people competing in order to license your patent. And you want that because oftentimes, and guys are worse about this than the ladies are, is that they'll go to a trade show and someone will say, I love your patent, it's fantastic, sit down, I'll be right back. And then 2 years later, as all the opportunities have gone, they come back and try to pick the patent up for a dime. You've got to get people competing against each other in order to have a chance to make the money that you could make and could realize from a patent. You want to avoid selling on credit. What someone's going to tell you is, hey, I tell you what, I'll do a UCC lien on this, and I'm going to take your patent and hold on to it, and you have a lien on it. Well, guess what? When it's time, when the person either holds on to the patent and doesn't sell any items and you get 0 income, he can hold on to that patent as it dies over 20 years. So what you want him to do is you want to avoid this. Don't let them talk you into doing a UCC lien on it, because you still have to sue to get the person to release the lien. Next. You maintain control in the event of non-payment. You may want to set a time and date, let's say on January 1st, where the person either pays you that year's minimum royalty according to a schedule, or you lose the patent rights. You want the patent rights, the equitable ones, you want that contract to die by its own terms so that you won't have to sue to get it back. And you want to state a clear non-payment related time that's not related to anything other than, say, the passage of time, because you want to make it clear that the title to the patent is passed. Next. Okay, if you're a seller objectives, you also want to maximize your royalty rate by sharing the risk, keep a mechanism to verify the books of your producer. You want to have some mechanism to stop cheating. If you license someone What is to stop them from making your item for you, on which you're paid a royalty all day long in the daytime, and at night make other products that they don't have to pay royalty on of the same product and pass them out the back door? There are some neat things going on right now with the ability to micro-write onto things that might not be totally discoverable. That means you could write on your device and have someone manufacture it and have some way to be able to tell. So if you go to the store and you buy one, and even if it looks just like yours and it doesn't have the code, the writing, the trace element, or whatever you put in it, then you're going to know that the person that's manufacturing it for you is cheating. You'll pretty much be able to identify it as coming from his factory by the parts and a few other things, and maybe even a code number. So you want to be able to stop that if you can possibly do it. Remember, it's a passive person. Your big deal is going to be take the check, deposit it in the bank, go back to the pool, and take a swim. That should be your only thing, except for maybe two things: making certain that insurance is still there against infringers, and also sending out maybe your CPA to audit the books of the person that's paying you the money. Next. Okay, you do not want to mix capital gains with ordinary expenses. You do not ever want to set up an entity that, if should you be taking the thing outside of 1235, that might end up with two income streams in it, because you want to always use your ordinary income to offset any of your expenses, because you don't want to waste that 15% money. You want all the 15 to 20 to 23.8% money in your pocket. Next. You want to capture the success of the buyers. That means that you want to, if you incentivized him early, you want to have maybe a ski slope shaped schedule of rates, so that if the guy really starts making money right along, and if it goes beyond a point that he can stand it, you can always renegotiate the patent. As long as you do it this way, you can sell it and sell it again and sell it again and sell it again. Every time you give it to someone subject to their right to pay, it's a sale, and so you get sale treatment. You have to give up control every time in order to get this treatment. And again, if the licensee's making big money, even though your rates are going up and up and up, he may not, because remember, if he doesn't pay and it lapses, there may be three other guys in the back room that are ready to step in and pay more money. And this will just keep more and more of going, and he's looking at these other people. And yeah, even though it's going up astronomically, maybe there's reasons he doesn't want to give up that market. And there may be reasons that he will keep the patent even though you're making 10 times what you thought you were going to make. Next. Okay, consider the functional slope of rate increase. Some people you're going to want to go a ski slope. Some people linear. So maybe some people you're going to do asymptotic or low. A lot of it's going to depend upon how common and how narrow or broad your patent might be. Next. The shape configured license to get the buyer moving, so you can, for example, give the guy a license for $1 for 2 years so that he can make hay while the sun shines. Or you may want to set it up so that he pays a certain amount of royalty, and maybe for that year, just to be able to push him and to see what he could do, you charge him royalties, let's say on the first 1,000 units, and maybe you give him a royalty of 50% break on the last 1,000. And so you're incentivizing him to really hit the gas, and that's going to be person by person, and whether you're going to be in a position to dictate a ski slope or a reduction in order to get the licensee to be able to prove what they can do is going to vary by case. Next. You want to watch two things. One is control the patent, and second is to make sure that they either maintain insurance to pay to take care of the infringers, or that they're going to pay to go against the infringers. If it turns out that the licensee simply wants to hold on to the patent and doesn't really care if other people make it or not, and so the fact that your income stream will go from 10 to 1, then you're going to have to find a way to make certain that they keep the ability to control the market and to get the infringers away. And one way to do that is through patent insurance. Next. Okay, buyer wants to be able to deduct everything that they paid. They want to avoid capitalization. They want advanced royalties applied against production so that none of those have to be capitalized. They want reasonable amounts for entering into the contract, possibly. Next. They'd like to have, they don't want to mix personal services contracts. So let's say, for example, you're the buyer. You don't want to mix the contracts that you have, personal services with the patent itself. What if you sold someone a building and you put in your janitorial services and the building, and it turns out that later on they come back and say, hey, I think your services are awful. I want you to buy the building back, buy the services back. I'm quitting the services, and therefore I want half my money back. Well, it may be that the building was 95% of the value and the service is only 5%. As long as you mix those two together, you put yourself in danger of a lawsuit over the allocation of the funds to each one. And so if you want to sell an asset, especially a capital asset, with a performance contract, the IRS may come in and redo it for you and tell you what is owned and what's the IRS going to do. They're going to say that the services were 95% and the building was maybe 5%. You may not like that, so don't do it. Next. Again, from the buyer standpoint, if the patent becomes economic, you want to give him the ability to give it up, and that way the patent owner can go negotiate with someone else, or he can negotiate with someone to get the objectives done that he wants to get done. And he also wants to maintain maybe responsibility if the buyer is buying the patent, and that's what his whole business is based on. Maybe he needs to have the ability to control litigation against others because, after all, that's how he's making his money. Next. If it's impractical for one person to take on everything, but you still want those cap gains, you could set up or go to or employ a company to take the patent and give you cap gains in return, and then that company could sublicense it to other people for less than the whole country, for less than the whole time, and could, for example, even have territories broken up within country. What does it care? Because those guys are going to make ordinary income, and you, on the other hand, want your money coming to you filtered at 15 to 20%. Next. Be wary of sale leaseback. The IRS can come back in and rewrite that because especially with control in patents, it's important to be completely passive. And so a sale leaseback could be seen as a control ploy, and the IRS might rewrite that for you, and you might not want that to happen. We've talked about reduced royalty for sales. Next. Tax law is littered with pretends. One of the other big things you want to find in the graveyard in the tax code is you'll find people that try to use that tax advantage, but there never was any real invention. So don't do that. This thing is very lucrative. And if you could do it without an invention, it's still worth, it has this tax effect. So don't do it unless you've got an invention. It's got to stand muster. One of the reasons that the IRS has the rules that it does is because it takes a patent usually 2 years to get examined, a little bit more than 1, and those tax years are going to be over before you ever know whether or not you had an invention. And so don't fake it out. Your invention may be denied by the patent office, but you better go in with a pure heart and a clean mind. Next.
I read there it said unless you want some R&R at Club Fed.
Yeah, R&R at Club Fed. I mean, that's everybody likes the Club Fed. We have a nice one in Long Beach. It's always cool. It's Terminal Island, and since you're always near the water, you can hear the seagulls, and it's. I mean, I've heard it's very picturesque.
Oh wow.
Okay. Avoid putting a patent into a corporation or an LLC unless you're absolutely certain you're not going to sell it within a year. Keep those 1235 rights. Consider that if the sale occurred beyond a year, the buyer may not want to buy your whole corporate organization. That's one of the reasons why people choose LLCs to keep it in. Even though LLCs are getting tougher and tougher now in California, you have this $800 to pay. You realize in most states an LLC is only $100. And you want to have several LLCs if you can. If you lived in Virginia or someplace else, you have one LLC. So here's the secret, I guess. This is not in the outline. So here's the secret, right? Let's say that you import something from China and you have a container that may have $500,000 worth of goods in it. You'd like to have that to be held by Corporation A or LLC A. It doesn't work as well in California. You have to pay a minimum of $800 franchise tax. And then you want to have another one, which is going to be holding your trademark. You don't want the trademark to disappear, but yet there's a liability in a trademark, so you never want it to be held by a person. And the other one, which is your sales organization, that's the one that's going to end up getting most of the flack. And these three companies can buy and sell items from each other, and hopefully you won't end up losing your container load of $500,000 worth of materials. So that's what you might want to consider doing if you're gonna sell it. Other people do it different ways. Some people will buy the containers and have them shipped to Wyoming and sold, put on trucks and taken to QVC and in lots of truckloads and sell them. So there's lots of different things you can do, and depending on what your product is.
We have about 5 minutes.
Are you sure? Okay, sure. Next. Inventorship is an unexciting topic, and can be damaging, so you don't get to put people on your patent just because you like them or not. You only want people on there who've contributed, and you want to keep a record of who contributed what, because if the patent splits, then you may want to, you've got to change your inventorship name. And here's the other big key about patents. U.S. practice is that you try to put as much in a patent as you possibly can, which means if you had 3 inventions in a system, put them all in there, because here's the key, and I'll leave you this, I guess, over the last 5 minutes, and maybe you have a question. If the patent office splits your patent, then they can't stick it back together. If you file 3 patents, and the patent office finds that they should be treated as one unit, they can make you shove them together, which could destroy your tax position. File everything you can in a patent and let the patent office, through their lack of wanting to do too much work at one time, split them into 3 different patents, and of course you'll pay 3 different filing fees and you'll pay 3 different maintenance fees, but you'll have 3 individual units that you can sell to 3 different people, and maybe 3 different companies, and it may be for different reasons. So I'm going to leave that as my final deal. We can do a part 2 on this, because we're only on slide number
48
out of
97.
97. So yeah, we're not going to make it through this. I'm not talking fast enough today.
You did really well. I'm like, I had a vacation day on my show today, and I learned a lot.
But what is your question?
My question is, what are the top 3 patents ever invented?
That's kind of difficult to say, because remember,
whether we know of, you
right.
know, that we may be able to.
Oh, boy, that's tough. Some of the most famous ones actually was the first one was written out on a sheet of paper. It was for potash. It was the first patent ever done in the United States, and it was how to make potash, which is sodium hydroxide, from the natural burned wood that you made it from. Let's see. I'm trying to think of some of the more. I can't think of any famous ones, because people use patents for different things. They use them for sales. They use them for cross-licensing, which, by the way, is a tax-free item. If you cross-license someone else, you can both agree to whatever your agreement is, that, hey, you won't do this to me and I won't do that to you, and guess what? As long as no boot changes hands. Boot is a term, tax term for money that's more on one side than the other. Then it's a tax-free item. Large companies have hundreds of patents, and they do wheeling and dealing and economic extortion, although that's not the right word for it. I guess it's licensing.
Extortion, that word makes me nervous.
Right.
I do have another question. We spoke about expatriation.
Expatriation, yeah. It's when you, basically, we were talking a little bit about Tina Turner and how she gave up her citizenship to live in Switzerland, because she got tired of paying taxes. They even have a form for that, so it's really cool.
So you can give up your citizenship and not pay taxes, but if you don't give up your citizenship and you move to another country, America still wants their money?
Still wants their money, and once you establish residency, you get like a $90,000 deduction, but you're still liable. I mean, that's, for example, if you look at people in Costa Rica, they do online gaming. The Justice Department has traditionally found the Americans, pick them out, and put them in jail. And your citizenship follows you, and it can tell what happens to you internationally. So yeah, I mean, if you give up your citizenship, that means you better have a place to land, like Tina did. And so,
And a lot of money to land on.
and she still looks like she's like 40 or 35.
Right.
She's
She
70.
still
She's
looks
70. Oh
good.
God, she looks so good.
She looks good. Well, my goodness, time flies. Please give us your information. That's the one thing we
All right,
haven't
yeah,
done.
I'm Kurt Harrington. Again, my sister was my partner for many years, and I went back into soul practice maybe a couple of years ago, and I'm in Long Beach. I like talking to inventors. I like talking to people with tax problems. That's the whole sort of the other side of things that we've talked about, and how to sort of deal with these, helping people get rid of their tax debt and tax problems if I can, but also people who've invented things. My only goal is to try to make them rich, if they'll let me. And listen, they got to have a good invention to start with, and they got to be willing to work at it. A lot of people have had inventions and they worked like crazy every day, and they're still only able to make a pittance out of it. But again, some of it's luck, some of it's genius, and some of it's just approaching things in the right way at the right time.
So if someone wants to set up a patent, they should call you.
Yeah, please call me, because
What's your number?
area code 562-594-9784. It's always best to call from about noon till about, say, 9 or 10 at night. And that way we can really chat and kind of figure out where you are and what I can help. And, a lot of people with tax problems call me. They don't ever tell me who they are. And I like it that way, because it's a privileged conversation, and it
Right.
protects them.
Right. I'm going to call you late tonight. I'm going to be like, Kurt, so I'm going to disguise my voice. You've been a joy and, oh my God,
I wanna
a
come back.
pleasure. You have to come back.
Okay.
This would be part one of the patent
Right.
laws.
And we haven't done trademarks or trade secrets. Well, we've done a little bit, but mostly the others are trademarks and why they're good. If you look at patents, trademarks, copyrights, patents are like the best tax. Trademark are the second best. Although you don't get to deduct much, you do get cap gains, at least if you hold it for a year. Copyrights are the worst because of the fact that they're hardwired into the system not to be an asset in the hands of the creator. Except for music. They only changed that a couple of years ago.
Oh, cool.
Which maybe Tina left too early. I don't know.
Maybe so. Well, we're going to definitely continue this conversation. We would like Mr. Curtis L. Harrington to come back before tax day, and we want to talk about a lot of things that happen and all the things that I don't understand that I'm too learning about. We want to thank you for coming into the community. Give Curtis L. Harrington a call with your tax questions, and start a patent. Find a patent, become an inventor, and you may become a very, very rich person. And Mr. Harrington, he's willing to help you do that. We'll see you next week in the community. We're going to have a great show next week. We'll see you here.